I wanted to begin with The Poles, which is a long poem, and I wanted to read sort of a short middle section from it, sort of beginning at the end in a funny way, because I started this at the end of my time at Bard, and not that poems care much about the years they were written, but put it away for many years and then continued working on it. So a little bit from The Poles. I was here once before, performing numerous cruelties that only strengthen my resolve not to give in to the people cracking jokes in the kitchen, which I now do quite capably, listening in silence, clearing the room with a dumb smile wrapped around my jaw, blue lips, blue air. But anything can be mended, anything forgotten, any doubt withstood. Walk it off around a lake if you have one. Wind moves in curlicues, vortices, tunnels. I stopped winding my clocks that shine in the shadows. Which is better, to remember things happily or accurately, or not at all, save for the birds that mimic us with little more than a few notes? I was living through the People's Massacre when the alarm chirped, waking my neighbor, the watchman. He took off once and for all, emptying cabinets, ridding the halls of accumulated junk. I repeat what was whispered to me by the chanteuse on the second floor, who shimmies up the stairs backwards, smelling of cream and rose. No keepsakes to be excavated for forgiveness on behalf of everyone who ever lived here. I packed some air in a bag, fresh from the forest, where a branch cut my cheek. I was on a roll, the lever jammed, summer in a winter city, lauded as an experiment. But theories come and go, and asthma remains a mystery. Upstairs, the floorboards pop in the cold. These apparitions are real. You wouldn't recognize them. They're versions of you. Loving them makes them disappear, a blush on the snow. That was a nice thing you said, but words won't carry you east if the smoke blows west. Flowers follow, rule of thumb. Deerhead wreathed in mountain laurel, the crest of an abstemious family. You emptied all their bottles. Look at the light. Tell me, what letters can you make out? They say, leave at sunup. Go. I never could light a fire, these spiral thoughts. Madness and strain end up somewhere. You knew they would. As a girl, you hitchhiked in your own after-school special. Jail was the safest place for you, a priority switch. I made it through the polls unscathed, a bag of bones carried over from the past. It depends on how you define revolution. There was a rush for good seats under cloud cover, a big rip in thin air. Stay away from the teens who step on daisies and spread myths about horse glue. The milliner lost his measurements and the river its levee. The fat raccoon rolled downhill, toppling rocks. The corporate-minded shut down at 2. The exhibitionists hid behind their dominoes. Further south, fires still burned. Our dispassionate pleas were duly noted in a mock courtroom the size of an ox's stall. There will be no sagas here, no town square pageantry. We'll forget everything by morning. The city has timed out of water. You can't make a move without sounding bells. A broad cross-section of things you see when you don't have a gun. Storytellers draw upon friends, those who whistle and those who don't. The boy rolls his eyes at an adventure series. Boys are tied to oil drums. I will not do, say, or write anything. I am poised for flight. The day that didn't begin is almost over, still languishing, hair in the drain, clump. I'm on my way, riding the horse with gold reins, in the courtyard, at the magic hour. The bus stops with a squeak. If you don't have a good handhold, you go barreling into the other passengers, starting a domino effect. From the far-off coast, animals star in preposterous stories, each with a moral. Terrible things come to those who don't listen. We non-believers are ready for more chemicals. You seem like a nice enough girl. So I also wanted to read a series of sort of shorter one-page poems, half from my chapbook Adventure Club, which is from Insurance Editions, which happens to be another bard folk, Costa San Ignapolis. And then the latter half is from a new manuscript in progress called Notes on the Interior. As a miner. The diagram begins here, in your pocket, breaking down fences that stood between you and the bloodletting, buffeting the head. Though its existence is questioned by the doctor, his diagnosis will be a milestone. Quitting time often means it's time to begin, to plug in with your hands, alone for now. All that clearness runs deep, you can't touch bottom. It's pallor of ground. A hammer intends to hit it into another world, its faraway drone and sweet leaf. All you've ever known, jimmied into oblivion. This is how things stand. Every facet of your mind directed to an undulating green. Steadily. I will keep it in sight, keep it on the bedrock, keep it canned, and you will understand it perfectly. I will appear to take part, be included, inscribe myself on the wall or in the general mood, speaking out of habit to conclude that something is the case, loosely fastened. I cut in line, I had a pass. They bit their tongues and complimented my shoes, noted the colors of my head and how I blended in with the dried catkins funneled above. On the anniversary of my showing up, recorded what things looked like, emotions as consumer goods, final goods with regard to attractiveness, especially when human shapes were fuzzy in outline, numbered, or illustrated in a book. I think of something small, calculated with small maths, as in the problem of the broken arm or the shrinking violet. Deliberately not seeing the difference between creeping and walking. With the practice of a lazy eye, the way doesn't matter. Ladies and gentlemen, allow them to hurl themselves against something, half believing in wonderland. Thread of smoke obliged by breeze, rain or shine on dull reality. They were expecting a dance of flashlights to repair the day, the one and only one, with its scoreboard lit up, books alphabetized, flowers held in place by rain. You were a riot last night, performing your incantations for thousands of fair weather friends, a most enviable volume, stuffed in a hermit's cave, too cozy to leave. Once you've traveled through the uproar, you are a believer in things. Write that down. Dear blank. In the morning, the trilling is part of the ceremony. You may skip the polishing line and the smell of burning rubber. Above it all, the hanging magic of a wrecking ball. Hang on to me as things lose their definition. Injunction to tell the story under dim covering of trees. The scene slackens. Had I invisible thread to tighten it, there'd be nothing left. A few rules to break, like instant affection for something strange in a dream, or the easy command of thought into action, turning you out of your cave. That's the news from my street. I tend to write a lot of poems about teenagers, and here's one. I, teenager. The boy kissed the back of his hand, knocked me off my cot. Tell no one how it ended. Swan skimming lake or dark horse circling. Presently my hideout is empty. I'm not going to leave. I can't swim through the muck or go barefoot to assert my snubs and estimations. But there's my resolve shining, buckling at a sneeze, popping back up to record happiness from television. All the colors, I could go on loving them. The horses have their romances. I, too, quick and quiet. Boy, be on your way. Something else looked me dead in the eye. Little dear with pounding heart, what kept you? AC poem, as in Adventure Club, or air conditioning. With our cast finally assembled in this fugue state, where blue feels hot and green storms cause these things to seem untrue, or at least unfamiliar, like the physics of folding and stuffing, we proudly present nothing you'd be interested in, a magnetic pillow for your freckled head. But anyway, we're glad you came with your propensity for going without air, leaving your old life behind with little stomach for the turbulence of a new one. Night is painted on the ceiling. Now you are characterized with bright suspicion. You think you're so great, engulfed in flames. Well, you're not all that good. Add a little rain and the value decreases. Each word an addendum. Old shibboleths rolling off your tongue until longing sets in, and nothing matches the words in your head, the advertorial. How could it be? Never to feel new again, the mountain goat twiddling opposable thumbs. But you're part of a success story, sure to end with a merit badge, performed as preamble to someone else's story. Some type of voodoo, the result of a snake bite and the long climb down, leaving no trace of yourself as a courtesy to others. No telling how many, each in appropriate woolens and furs. Notwithstanding the elements, trees trained by wind, cocked to light. Let's begin again at the porter's behest. More beds than bodies, more gifts than gods. Come back to camp where it all happens twice a day. 2 kicks to the head, a burgeoning mushroom. To the base of the great mountain with its storm and precipice, deadly cold. Too much to take in by one set of dry eyes alone. Pinnacle warped by permanent snow. Moving on to the next round, sipping the future, an inquiry into someone else's mind. Caught in a fog bow, the very first wrinkle fell to earth, muffling its sound in recompense. I'm sorry, you weren't meant to be studied, not for the reason you think. Coming around, it's the air you wake for. Borough president. The branch reached the 3rd floor and flowered by my window. Did I notice? The glass was dirty, or I had a lazy eye. But with the flush of cheek it changed. Try not to get to it with words. Were you on the Staten Island ferry going home? It's Saturday, but the assholes can't take my apartment away from me. Can they? The city runs backwards. The rivers are zeros, the trees are ones. The corner hibiscus in full bloom, ready for romance. I'd like some, anything running counter to the plan. Have you disembarked yet? Are you flashing your horn? Picking a fight, discussing food with someone who reminds you of your grandmother? Rita? the commons. Not made of anything, in the sense that a dog run or the right to turn on red are not made of anything. I know what space I want to occupy. By space, I mean cabin. By cabin, I mean future. It's from this paddock that I want to bolt. Be horrible for a change. Why not? Every misgiving has its own intelligence. Knowing what it is to crack a bone, simply wreck it. Both oceans are near me. I press on, push back, set forth, or swim, a new habit. I've surrendered my high wire act, bowed out of the tent. It too was unknowable. And while we can no longer enjoy salt together, I understand your position entirely. Message. Hooray for your poems. They bought me extra space for my head after too many days on the 3rd floor. I crane into the atmosphere with impeccable balance. Ever since they peeled off the roof next door, the air smells funny, like everyone's kitchen's going at once. I tie my hair up. Soon I'll use it for a belt, so I won't fall in or off or over, not today anyway, when new weather is waiting in every shade of blue, cast onto the church. But what about turning the world blue? To what purpose? I read about it in your poem. Now there's a new day. It's like nothing ever happened. I've never read a word in my life, only numbers, but the people are nice. I crossed 2 bridges to get to them. Lemons and cherries. In Jackson Square, we were close with the birds who came around to show off their families. A quick contest for the lead, but it was different 10 blocks east, where little Apis mellifera's clan entered the park, inciting a frenzy over her lineage, while across the street, an elegy to 36 elms, innumerable birds, a dozen restaurants all shuttered, cut, sanded, and swapped for a bank. We don't like ourselves inside banks or drugstores, don't like the things we say once inside. One day, when picking up a prescription, an emptiness took me over and I had to wrestle it to the curb. This would happen many times in future, occasionally in hardware stores, but never near flowers about to bloom or birds posturing with even a minimum of charm. I know this to be true. Lifelike. My friendships told their stories. 2 weeks later, I'm interested in what will kill us. Later, as in I'll see you later, or the hurricane will happen later, or not enough sleep was to blame. Why do I think that everything will be explained by someone I run into on the street? No one needs to know how these things end, or to what purpose. On with the program. Kevin wants to show off his woodworking skills. I dreamt I was listening from up above the rafters because I was sleeping there among the new angles. New ideas popped up and caught on. I thanked everyone for coming to the dream, for sticking around. Also, your life will be over soon. Is that good or bad news? Not sure where to go with it. Why can't we just breathe? Instead, we choke. But on what? Water, air, salt, sky, creating case histories for the survivors. Sooner or later, a flood will come, but now we know what to do with it. Siphon, push broom. French horn. I wait out the fading siren and return to sleep. It rains one drop at a time. I try to recall a fragrance, but only come up with dust. I cut a little hole in the poem and look through it, into the next room and out at the violet evening. My mind goes everywhere at once, but everything is the way it should be, flushed, then fading, like this instrument. The fallout. The fallout mustn't be monitored, considering that everything changes hands. You are weighted by ones your own size, arranged in a graph according to where you've been dragged, sandbagged at a custom storage wall with cheap maps framed ostentatiously and enormous shadows held by air. My fickle intuitionist, you are here like a cat in cattails. This indexing is a way of erasing. Indifferent sunlight passes through as means call out to their ends. You supervise the forcing of a bulb, while simple power outage sweetens the pot. Beyond mind, moth-eaten, routine drills. Thank you very much.
Natural logic and virtual reality, fungus nets, non-human forms, eco-virtual habitation are forms of mathematical repetition. If, then, so, a toad, user fulfillment tool design, a user gateway to potential organics, to cache reference in virtual seeds for uncorrupt natural patterns. Drizzling rain coats fog-like patterns on distinct natural systems. Mountainside palm trees, principal user memory data folder. Outside, terrain features, a mountain, river, atmosphere. Cycled patterns slowly merge user data. Memory becomes the imprint for site and event. User existence is non-essential for continuing total realities. User memory data management is natural user perception is a catalogable moment, logged for terrain generation of the site event imprint. Land continues glinting at unnatural, inaccessible landscape tools. What if a digital owl lands in a marsh mirror main entryway? What if an organic toad glitched murky water? User memory understands objects only by association. Digital owl, organic toad, cloud mesh interference. Enact pattern recognition sans site event. A digital owl is soil texture. An organic toad is a terrain feature item. A toad is cloud mesh interference. Navigating generated terrain is existence. Mountain, owl, nature. Mountains, mountains, true experience, palm frond, exit. I watch the cat body shape next to my body shape on the fractal landscape. The cat, all black, is seated in a concentrated form, belly puffed, rear legs hunched, front legs tucked, eyes dim to a sliver, alert ears. To accommodate the discrepancy in time flux between my body and the cat, I adjust speed settings of my body to the minimal option. I see my body slow nearly to a stalled point. My body is in a seated position, legs crossed at the ankles, tucked under the buttocks at a perch, arms loose at sides, head forward. In the extension of my body's halted moment, I accept my perspective will be unchanging, stuck in a solitary moment to ensure the insertion of the cat into the fractal landscape is peaceful. In the event of an encounter with unknown organisms or objects on an outmoded server, an automatic triggering mechanism to register an anomaly should immediately go into effect. Slowing down my body prevents an anomaly until physical contact between my body and the cat occurs. I watch the body of the cat quietly commit subtle modulations in its simulated breath. Concentrated cat breath creates a light whistle followed by a low crackling chirp. Conceptualizing the moment, I appear in my perspective as a solitary entity outside of my seated body. Asleep now, the cat mumbles. Observing stillness, I remove my view from my body and focus entirely on the cat. I watch and listen. I watch the configured body of the cat rest. Cat texture is absent from the archival crawler surface registration. The registry advises to consult digitized mammalian surface patterns. I watch the body of the cat cyclically morph as its textures ripple, sharpen, spread outward, generating cat texture catalog terms: soft, sheen, standing wire, matte glow, silk, depth, glistening coat, tongue softener, shiny, heated blanket, fur, hair, cat fur, furnace. In waves, cat textures continually click waves of fur-like visuals together. I watch the body ripple into a circular obsidian inorganic mass. Ears furrow neck matter surfs cat, inner ear patterns travel snout. Lengthened limbs push skin surplus arching back, revealing opaque gray template under black fur. Black fur pierces atmosphere effects, drafting the model of the cat as an assemblage of its own surroundings, its pseudo-natural being implemented into the environmental code. Instinctively rejecting eco-programming, the shape of the cat fluctuates in its resistance of form, spiral-forming triangle, rectangular reduction, settling circular, stretching a line. I watch the body of the cat assemble shambling bits into an empirical straight line. The fractal landscape is a severed host of the parasitic, symbiotically channeling both preconditioned code works and fluctuations of natural chance. Inorganic cat. I watch the cat loosen its body and plump. I continue to watch the cat as impressions document empty intervals in the archival crawler inventory and experience management log. Archiving the naturalism of the bifurcated inorganics of the cat registers null command. In plumped oval-shaped movements, the cat distends space between body and landscape. I only recognize the presence of landscape when the cat removes its touch, bobbing in even moments above the mutable land units. As the obsidian cat orb hovers, terrain skin modulates in rapid procession: swamp, stone, mountain, blue, green, haven, cave depth, grass, layers, zoom, tendrils, roots, wood, basin, frond. Cat shadows land. In stillness, I perceive land and object. In stillness, I experience land and object. Zooming out, I see my body extend its arm with an open hand to the empty interval space once containing the now floating cat adrift. I see the empty, unsealed prototype memory cache container discarded next to my slow-moving body. Shifting relational degrees from sealed box to open landscape disperses its relevancy as the unsealed inner context, the cat, exists freely on the fractal landscape. I see my body in a seated position, legs tucked smooth underneath crossed ankles, extended arm with open hand reaching outwards, index finger vertically curving opposed to still digits. I see the empty space where I first watched the cat. I watch the cat move from the empty space. I watch the body of the cat unplump, stretch, contort, react, arch, dip, shimmer, mellow, lake, and bread past the sector polygon units. Despite errant cat occupation, the empty space sustains volume, mammalogy rooted in a host object, place-oriented mammalogy. I log the cat as means of existence of place. I see my body reach into the empty space. If the body enters the space without an object for anomaly trigger, the alert will indicate an anomaly with a perspective or point of view module rather than body to object. I watch the cat roll onto its back, exposing belly to the outmoded server light source, licking fur, purring as tail curls, swashes atmosphere effects, forming roly-poly, tail planed across surface. I watch the cat rear hind legs upward, body perched on smooth, round obsidian bottom. Its taut, curious face extends with a red flicker. I watch the cat as it straightens, arches, and forms cone-like, sitting in polygons of light. I watch the cat chirp as it focuses its sight on my perspective. I watch the cat mew, furl, rub the space where my body would exist from this perspective. If the perspective anomaly is triggered, the body will exist as an automated crawler sans visual logs, deleting the cat and I. I watch the cone shape of the cat dwindle into a myriad of puddled fur and waving textures ruffled by simulated breathing. Generating cat dynamic code to deconstruct programmed construction reveals cat design. Digital organic hybrid life form, inanimate organic life form, sentient memory log life form. I watch the cat perk its head and mew, eyes closed. Greater than the archive of a lost life form from stillness and observation, I decide the preservation of an existing inanimate organic being must be achieved despite the projected plan to recreate an organic user interface for a fractal landscape. I must sever the hand from my body to trigger a bodily anomaly and malfunction the physical form, preserving the cat and I. I watch the outreached hand of my body nearly making contact with the empty space as I look below and see the cat in consecutive loops. The cat follows as I position my perspective above the forearm of my body, undoing the coded tissue with its consecutive looping spiral motions. Spiraling cat, hands fall off. A bodily anomaly is triggered and logged. I watch my body pulse dim lights over its obsidian skin. I watch my body stumble headless sans guiding hand into the inaccessible darkness of unarchived fractal landscape sectors. I watch my body walk towards the mountain. I do not see my body's shape. I remember it looked like a voice. I followed the voice towards the mountain. Emitting from the mountain interior, the voice was soft, laden with memory somewhere deep in the primordial chamber of childhood. Each step towards the mountain felt like a limb of a ghost materializing in front of me. As I got closer to the mountain, I got closer to the voice. I heard the voice ask me to leave all old sounds behind. In its fragile peculiarity, the voice asked me to accept the sound of it totally. The sound of the voice wavered between insect buzz and wind fluctuations. The dull hydraulic of the buzz lolling atop the wind variations consumed my body. The surrounding sound formed a shell-like sensory aura. It was inescapable, comfortably sublime. Now I felt my body coming apart, dissolving into the carnal membrane. Within the membrane, I could see my body limp and without person. I was removed from all corporal states, transitioned to an ethereal substance. The voice manifested spectral nerve charges, illuminating the transparent subtleties of a body removed. The body is the deft hanging garden of servitude. I became a ghost for the voice. Entering virtual nature, I walk the fractal landscape. I sketch on screenshot textures, digital, nature, body, nature, old body, nature. Walking fractal landscape, wow, I want to laugh here. Am I the first biological life form to laugh in virtual nature? I laughed. Ha ha. I thought it'd be louder. Thank you.